So good morning, welcome back to another video. Today we've come down to the beach and we're going to think outside of the box because we're going to do some macro photography with my Canon 7D and my Sigma 105mm macro lens on the beach. This might be interesting, so let's get stuck in. I'm going to find some things to take macro photos of from Kilnty Beach this morning. Alright, so I've got the first one sort of lined up on the camera. It's a little red stone with some red streaks leading through it. I put it in a little puddle of water and it's sort of surrounded by some gravel. So we're just going for a punched in texture type shot for this first one. So we're at f9, a 2/50th of a second and ISO 200. I focused right on the middle of the rock, everything else behind it's just going to fall off into an out of focus background. Obviously we're shooting at macro, so anything sort of in the background does tend to blur itself out. So there's the first one taken and we'll show it to you. And we'll find the next one from the beach this morning. Alright, so next up I want to take some sort of seaweedy texture shots against this concrete slab. There's some shells going on as well, which might make quite a cool little subject in a little while, but I think the first thing we're going to do is find some of this seaweed to take a photograph of, so we may just hang around here for a little while. I like the way the seaweed's all sort of draping down the face of this, but yeah, like I said, there are a couple of little shells as well growing on the side of that. There's probably something alive inside there as well, which adds to the story a little bit. So I think it's going to be seaweed and some shells, some barnacle things as well. There's lots of texture on this little rock face here, this little concrete slab. So let's get stuck in and start finding some things to take a photograph of against here. Cool. Alright, so I've got the tripod set up in what is probably the weirdest configuration I've probably ever had this in, but it seems to be working. It's about the only way I can get close enough to the face of this concrete slab just to get a macro photo of this shell. So there's a big like barnacle shell here. I focused right on the tip of it and it's surrounded by some seaweed and some small little barnacles as well in the background, which I don't think we're actually getting in, but we're getting the seaweed and the shell. I've used the 10-second timer here because this slot is wobbling around a little bit in the breeze. I can see that on the camera as we're talking. So I'm at 200th of a second, f11 and ISO 320, and I'm really hoping this 10-second countdown timer is just going to allow this tripod just to settle enough to take a sharp photo here. So let me just zoom in and make sure that that didn't wobble about too much. It doesn't seem to have done. Yeah, that seems pretty in focus to me. Here's a photo of a barnacle shell, or whatever shell this is. And we're going to focus on some of the seaweed, I think, and then maybe get some more of the texture on this rock wall in a second. So here's the second photo, and I'm going to find something with this seaweed. Right, so this next one's been a bit of a faff to work out because the sun is essentially behind where you are, so it's just glaring right on all of this seaweed here, and it's obviously still a bit wet, so there's a lot of reflections coming off of it, which is less than ideal, but I don't have a polarizer that fits this macro tube. So what we've got a 1/25th of a second, f11 and ISO 320, and I'm about 2/3 of a stop under exposing this just to stop blowing any highlights on the seaweed out. So once that's taken, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to find something on the floor, maybe stones, maybe shells, maybe glass, I don't know. We'll figure that out when we come to it, but here's a photo of the seaweed. I'm going to see what is on the floor to take a photograph of next. Here we go. Alright, so I'm currently walking around on the beach trying to find a shell. It would appear that we're on the only beach in the world, probably, that doesn't have shells on it, which is really frustrating because one of the things that I wanted to take a photograph of was a shell in the sand, but it's not looking good. How can you have a beach that doesn't have shells on it? How is that possible? Like, shells and beaches and sand, they go hand in hand. This is really annoying, but I think the next photograph I want to take is just a close-up photograph of the sand and just see what sand looks like through a macro lens. So we may have to move away from the wet stuff where we are onto some of the dry stuff a little bit further up the beach and just take a photo looking straight down onto the sand, hopefully, anyway, if I don't fall over and die. But yeah, it's not looking good on the shell front, I'm going to be honest. It really isn't. Alright, so we've moved away from the concrete blocks now. We've kind of moved on to where the water's still trailing through all of the sand, and it's leaving some like really cool little textures and some lines in the sand. And so when I'm looking down on it, I see, it sounds really silly, but satellite imagery. You know, like from the International Space Station or high altitude satellites when they take pictures of deltas and things like that. To my mind, it kind of looks a bit like that, so that's the next photograph I want to take. Alright, so here's the next photo I've managed to line up. It kind of looks like some fingers from above. It looks kind of weird. So we're at f10, a 3/20th of a second, and ISO 320. I'm still using the 10-second timer. I don't know why at this point. It's just one of them things that's got left on. Hopefully this one will look alright because the sun's just come out and blown everything out, hasn't it? Nope, that looks okay. So here's the texture photo of the sand. Now we're going to move off onto the dry sand and I'm going to take a picture of the rock that I have in my pocket. Alright, so the final photo, the little blue stone that I found in the water that I quite like and I'm taking home with me and I'm keeping it forever. We're at f10, a 500th of a second, and ISO 320. And I really just wanted to put it on the dry sand just so the blues really pop off the yellows in the background. So using the 10-second timer once again, we're going to take this photograph just of a blue stone. This is what things have come to for me recently, it would seem. Taking photos of blue stones on beaches. I'm quite happy with that, so I'm going to show that photo to you and then we're going to finish this video and wrap up, I think, because rain is on its way and you can tell by the clouds that it's not going to be too much longer. So here's the photo. Alright, so thank you very much for watching today's video. This is Tyler, he's my oldest child. He wanted to come along and he wanted to end up in the video at some point, so here he is. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked seeing the macro photos from the beach today with my Canon 7D and my Sigma 105mm f2.8 macro lens. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up because it really does help the video out and it brings new viewers into my channel. If you liked it more than that, somewhere below Tyler there is a subscribe button. You can press that and you'll see more nonsense from me in the future. So until the next time, it is peace and goodbye.
Peace out.